Well, with me now is Frank Luntz, the US Republicans pollster and political strategist, and Rachel Sylvester, the Times political columnist. Frank Luntz, you've been up against him in the States. What's he like as an operator?
He's pretty quiet. He's not in the press. He doesn't want to have his picture and his name out there, particularly in the first campaign. So I was surprised that he actually filmed that little clip. But I will tell you, families struggling, retire with dignity. This is Barack Obama's language. And the danger is if he tries to take American language and apply it to British politics.
It's the Shrum-Gordon thing all over again.
For example, it's L-A-B-O-U-R. I would love to see the text of what he writes to make sure that he knows that.
This is, do you think, Rachel, a kind of last throw of the dice for Ed? I mean, it's not looking good at the moment.
Well, he's thinking it's going to be, he wants a big player and he's going to squeeze middle. But as Frank says, the middle class even in America is a completely different meaning. And there's a danger that, you know, that there's the message, you can have the best political message in the world, but if the messenger isn't appealing to the voters, it's not going to make any difference.
But I mean, Axelrod must have made a calculation that it was going to be a battle. And of course, you know, if he can deliver, you know, that is going to be the final feather in his cap.
I think it says, Laura says it's this analysis that you can either have a recovery, which is a trickle-down recovery, where the very wealthy do well, and then that trickles down to the rest, or it's people in the middle who feel left behind. You've got to help those people. And it's the fact that both Miliband and Axelrod have sort of agreed on that analysis, which Obama also shares, I think it's made him think that there's something on the centre-left across both sides of the Atlantic. But whether or not Miliband is as good at articulating that as Obama is obviously another question.
In the election, with UKIP doing so well, at least in these European elections, and with the fact that the districts never changed, they kept the same boundaries, which is going to be tough for the Tories, it really is anyone's ballgame. If you look at the record over the last 6 months, the Conservatives should be doing much better than they are in the polls. But if you also look at the communication, and I think Douglas Alexander is actually the best strategist in all of Britain, and I don't think he gets credit for that. But if Miliband can't score points off of this government's failure to communicate, when can he?
But it's interesting because the Obama team here, as we've talked, is working for both sides.
Split.
Yeah. Would you have taken this job?
You know,
if the money was good enough?
That's nothing with the money. The chance to work with Douglas Alexander is an incredible opportunity. But in the end, you have to be responsive to the local cultures and the local concerns. Yeah. And yes, the middle class are squeezed. But you got to be careful that you don't put politics first. You put policy and people's concerns. I'm nervous that this is going to make it sound like Americans are for hire.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way.
Well, do you think you could get Miliband elected?
I know.
Spotted Cameron.
I know I would do things differently. I know that I would focus on the team, not just the individual. I know that I would focus on promises made and were they actually kept. And I know that I would put the focus on, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Because even though the numbers are good, the people don't feel it. And one more thing, it is smart that they're focusing on cost of living, but they should be calling it cost of life.
I was just going to say it's not just Americans that are coming over. It's, you know, we've got Linton Crosby working for the Conservatives, Ryan Coetzee for South African, for Lib Dems. It's almost as if British political class has lost confidence in itself, and we've got to get
in some way. I mean,
it's wanting endorsement from outside. I think it's really interesting. I remember David Cameron once said you can't drop democracy from 20,000 feet, and there is a danger. You know, you can't drop election victory from 4,000 miles. And each culture is very different. Every country has a different sort of nuance and emotion. And I'm not sure you can understand that if you're not from the country.
But you taught us. The true story is, it was the British political elite went to America in 1979 to teach Ronald Reagan how to win in 1980. Actually, the British taught the Americans how to do politics.
But, you know, as far as Miliband concerned, there is no other place, is there? I mean, he does have an American obsession.
It's fascinating. He went to live there with his father when his father got a job at Harvard when he was 12. And it was obviously a hugely formative, both emotionally, personally and politically time. You know, he's an absolute obsessive about the Red Sox, tweets at 4 a.m. in the morning about matches. He loves the sort of optimism of America. But it's also, I think, about that time he spent with his father
But is there a misunderstanding? The point about what Axelrod did for Obama, as Laura said, he was a change candidate. It was hugely different. You know, it was obviously presidential. It's a completely different electoral offering that we
and
have
also
here.
his analysis is that you win from the centre, and Miliband has decided that the centre of gravity in British politics has shifted. That's a huge gamble, I think, for Miliband. I'm not sure that the voters have actually become more left-wing, and certainly in the past, Axelrod's analysis has been that that's not the case, that you win from the centre. So that will be an interesting dynamic to watch.
Frank?
Well, if he supports the Red Sox, there's no way he's going to be prime minister. In terms of the left and the center, because you've got now you have 4 parties. It's going to be like snooker. It's going to be balls bouncing off each other. And so you're not going to be able to tell who's going to win.
I was going to say, what is it that Axelrod's going to do which is going to set Miliband apart? Because what the theme seems to be is get out there, speak to the people. Well, actually, Miliband's been trying to do that. You know, there has to be some kind of different, is there going to be some kind of huge slick campaign?
I don't think they can necessarily do that with Miliband. I'm not sure that would work. What I think Axelrod's appointment shows that is interesting is it will be very much about inequality. It will be about the wealthiest have done very well out of this recovery, but the ordinary people, you know, the squeezed middle haven't. And that is just reinforcing that message, which will be sort of super rich versus the rest. Which Miliband has sort of started on, and he's got to hope that Axelrod can sharpen that message in a way that appeals to people.
And there is an alternative, which is hardworking taxpayers, which is in the end you can argue over whether you're middle class or working class or what you are. And in Britain, class-based politics are more salient than in America. But almost everyone defines themselves as a hardworking taxpayer. If Cameron focuses on the answer to this class-based politics that Axelrod will push.
But then there'll be no cigarette paper in terms of the way they're going to campaign.
But that requires Cameron to be laser focused on communicating that efficiency of government, effectiveness of government, accountability of government, so that they can't run an anti-incumbent campaign. And second, if he's shown to be fighting for hardworking taxpayers, and they haven't done it necessarily.
But isn't this, in the end, I mean, it's slightly facetious, but it's kind of all about the West Wing. And of course, Laura says that, you know, they're all salivating. But you kind of wonder what kind of heartland Labour supporters, activists are going to make of this.
There was a moment last year when the Labour team kept saying, let Bartlett be Bartlett, talking about Miliband. It's basically a reference to Jed Bartlett in the West Wing. And but actually, Miliband isn't Jed Bartlett, nor is he Barack Obama, and there's a danger that they're kind of superimposing their fantasy politics on a much more complicated and less glamorous reality.
God, the very idea of fantasy politics. Thank you both very much indeed.